Okay, let me share my screen. Hope you can see my screen right, Nizo.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so just go ahead.
Yeah, so have you started the recording or?
Yes, yes, I did started recording. You can carry on.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Global Business Weekend 2022 powered by the D365 Jams. It's our annual day and we hope you all are doing well and keeping safe. I am Nijo Joseph, moderating this session along with Venkata Subra. And this session is presented by Rakesh Darge. Rakesh will be talking about virtual entities with data events for Dynamic 365 Finance and Operation with Power Platform. So a brief about Rakesh. Rakesh is recently being awarded Microsoft MVP, and he is the fast track recognized solution architect, and he's also an MCT. Apart from that, basically he is a solution architect specialized in Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations implementation, integrations, and performance. So we are so glad to have you on board, Rakesh, with this session. Before I hand over the session to Rakesh, I would like to mention that if you have any queries, please feel free to drop your questions or whatever it is in the chat window. We will take them either during the question answer session or whenever we get a possible slot to raise a question with the speaker. Thank you again for joining and enjoy the session. Rakesh, over to you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Venkata and Dynamic 365 Champs team. I hope I'm audible to everyone, right?
Yes,
You are.
yes.
And there is no background noise from my side.
Nothing, nothing.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. So let me just quickly share my screen. I think we have 60 minutes and we have a lot to cover. I'll try to see what best we can do.
Sure. The stage is yours. I can see the vibes coming out from
Yeah.
yesterday's emailer.
Yeah, I feel
You can
honored and
enjoy the.
privileged. Okay, anyways. Okay, let me just quickly share my screen. Can someone confirm whether they are able to see my presentation day?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Let me enable my camera as well so that everyone can see. Okay, there you go. Okay, so first of all, thank you so much. It's great to be here in Global Biz Apps Weekend 2022 Learning, folks. And thank you, Venkata, Deepesh, Vivek, and entire Dynamics 365 Champs organizers for giving me an opportunity to talk. And it is always great to see all of you taking the time to be here. It's really honor to have a chance to spend some time with you. So, as mentioned by Venkata, hi everyone. I wish you good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are joining in from. And let me start introducing myself. I think Venkata and team they already introduced, but let me just quickly brief you about myself. So, I'm Rakesh Darge. I'm MVP in business applications. I mean, I think it's close to 1 day now, and this is the first session in this community, probably last session in this year, and the first session after I become MVP. So, thanks for giving me an opportunity to talk. And in addition to being a solution architect in the area of finance and operation at TCS here in Mumbai, India, I'm also a certified trainer, a member of Dynamics 365 and Power Community User Group in India. I'm also group leader of the same group. Aside from this, I write a blog post on Dynamics 365 for finance and operations, where I specifically talk about the area of finance and operation cross apps, one Dynamics, one platform, which consists of ERP as well as the platform, Power Platform, and the customer engagement side. I'm super excited today. If you look at the agenda and the kind of a welcome from your side, and I'm also very proud of this year's accomplishment. This would not been possible without the support and the contribution of community across the globe. To be honest with you, And if you look at the achievements, so Microsoft recognized my skills this year. The first award that I have got 4 months back, which is Fast Track Recognized Solution Architect for Financial Operation App. And I feel privileged because overall, globally, there are only 25 architects in the area of fast track recognized solution area for financial operations, and I'm one of them. And yesterday, I got to know that I'm also MVP in the business category. So I think super well overwhelmed in terms of the understanding and in terms of my skill set that someone is recognizing, and that to the product company. In terms of my background of what I have done from where I came from. So I grew up in the IT and I've been working with Microsoft Stack all of my professional career. Got my start working in application programming in VC++ and then moved to Visual Basic way back before I moved into ERP space in 2009. And later I moved to Dynamics 365 FNO, earlier known as the Dynamics AX, that is back in 2005. In terms of my focus area, I exclusively focus on Dynamics 365 FNO for close to 16 plus years, and recently turned my attention to Power Platform and customer engagement apps, enabling cross apps, predominantly one Dynamics, one platform learning to everyone. And in terms of my day-to-day activity, we at Solution Architecture team here at TCS help customers in their implementation and resolve the business challenges into the modular cloud ERP world. That is a Dynamics 365 FNO, and also try to guide them through their digital transformation journey, right? And in addition to blogging and in addition to community, I also wrote a white paper on self-governing modular cloud ERP, how the cloud ERP is going to be look like 5 years, 10 years down the line, what kind of a technology stack supposed to be part of the cloud self-governing ERP in the context of AI and machine learning. So I encourage you guys go through the same. It is publicly available and download on my employer's portal, that is tcs.com. You will get an idea how this AI and machine learning is going to change the modular cloud ERP world in terms of the self-governing ERP concept. You can always reach out to me through LinkedIn or through my email or my Twitter handle. And in terms of, as I mentioned, the activity that me and my team perform in day to day, one of the things I help customers to resolve their problems with one Dynamics and one platform solutions, because many customers are trying to understand what is Dynamics, how can we harness the power of the entire business process, so on and so forth, right? So one of the key aspects that me and my team focus on the design integration strategies, right, and build seamless event-driven architecture. So that is what the topic is all about today, and help them to increase the productivity, empowering their team, their developers, citizen developers, business users, try to leverage low code, no code platforms, so on and so forth, right? So moving on to next slide. So in terms of agenda, as I mentioned, I'm really excited to take you through our agenda today because of not only a topic, but also because of the new feather in the cap, which is MVP. And as part of this session today, in next 60 minutes or so, we will cover the following topics. Probably I'll run through quickly a couple of slides. However, you can also reach out to me if you need a more further conversation with me, and if you have any specific point to be clarified from a technicality aspects of today's topic, I'm happy to help you anytime, any day. No worries on that. So in terms of agenda, we'll start with what is virtual table, earlier or formerly known as the virtual entities. So I'll talk about more on that aspects. I know those who came from a customer engagement or Power Platform, probably they are aware of what is virtual table and virtual entity, but I'm pretty sure those folks are belonging to financial operation app. It's a new concept. It's completely new concepts, and that is what the idea of today's session. Then we will also look at what business problems are we trying to resolve by using the virtual entity and the data events, right? Because often those folks are trying to interact with the business user, whether it's IT or whether it's business sponsors. They always ask a question: if you are trying to propose any sort of technology stack, what are the advantages that my business users are going to get? So we will try to understand not as a just subject from a technicality perspective, but also from an implementation perspective, right? So if you are a technical person, if you are a functional, if you are a the architect, you should understand why I'm implementing the virtual tables or entities for that matter, and what business problems it's going to resolve. Then we will also look at the virtual table configurations. What are the configurations are required when it comes to the one Dynamics, one platform, which is the integration with Dynamics 365 financial operation as a ERP and the Power Apps, or for that matter, customer engagement app. Then we will also deep dive in the aspects of more on the aspect side of authentication authorization, right? Because that is where a security concept comes into picture. Or the customer architect always asks these questions: how does authentication and authorization work, right? Then we will focus more on the high level architecture, right? How that under the hood, how that data events pass the qualifications of the authentication and authorization, how that mechanism works under the hood, right? So if you're an architect, typically there's questions normally asked by the customers in terms of the understanding of detailed concept, not just the just the surface of how it works and how that configuration works. So we'll understand how that virtual entity data events work. Then we will also talk about the key components to enable the Power Apps integrations in using the data events, because there could be two scenarios that I foresee, that one customer might have the financial operations currently running and they wanted to leverage one of the customer engagement app or the Power Apps. So in the context of data events with virtual entity, what are the aspects that we need to take into consideration? What are the key components? Another scenario could be customer is already existing or leveraging the Power Apps or a customer engagement app, and they wanted to establish a new structure altogether for financial operation app, right? So in that perspective, what level of key components that when you take into consideration when there is a need of data events to be, the captured. So that is what the aspects of the agenda. And we'll then configure and connect the virtual data entity events just to, the reinforce the concepts covered. But the before I go ahead and jump into specific aspects of next couple of slides, a couple of prerequisites that I wanted to reiterate just for the to be on the same page. So this entire session, it builds upon some foundational topics like finance and operation app, Power Apps, business events, cross apps, or one dynamics, one platform sort of integration. And since we are going to talk about integration with Dynamics 365 apps or Power Apps for the matter, you are also expected to, the understand the basics of REST or OData, or maybe some sort of OAuth 2.0 protocols and so on and so forth, because often I'll use these terms as you go further. I'm sure Venkata mentioned this already, but if you do have any questions, please, enter those questions in the chat window, and I'll try to take a pause before I move on to the demo or the other aspects of the sessions, right? And I'll try to answer those questions one by one. So as you can see here in the slide deck, right? So I thought I'll start with today's discussion with a bit of a perspective. In some sense, when I was preparing, for today's talk with for the talk, and way back when I was, doing one of the implementation of Dynamics 365 2009, and if I remember distinctly, this was 2012, in the year of 2012 or thereabout, where I was completely swam into implementation work. And it was fascinating time that time, and I was thinking, how will I complete the integration or some sort of aspects of timelines, the project timelines or the activity timelines, the documentation works, how I'm going to create a security roles, or for that matter, the conference room pilot testing, some sort of customization, and but obviously, the demo and so these are the thought process were there in my mind. And it is but obvious, because we were living in an era where we call as a client server era, and the technology options were very limited in the context of Dynamics 2009 integration with any sort of CRM or customer engagement app, or for that matter, third-party app, right? So in my view, it is still valid today's world, and I'm sure those who are dabble in the archaeology of the technology would understand AI was one of the options available to integrate the Dynamics AX 2009 with CRM or any third-party application, right? So I was so excited, which builds the integrations, and using the AI feature. Those who actually worked in AX 2009 platform probably would know that if you want to build any integration, the AI allows you to create a wizard-based sort of experience, and it actually created the all the integration artifacts which is required to interact with the outside world. However, it's now completely changed in the new world of Dynamics 365 FNO sites, and that's where here we are after 20 years, and finally we are seeing the technology where it does not basically uh, require any sort of dedicated what I can say. I hope everyone is able to see my screen.
We lost the screen, Rakesh. We are able to hear you, but we lost the screen.
Okay, let me just stop this here.
It's loading now.
Visible now?
Yes, we can. Yes, yes.
Perfect. So here we are after 20 years later, right? Finally having the technology which does not require any sort of dedicated infrastructures or a complex installation and the configuration process, right? Because everything is running in cloud, everything is automated, and it is super benefited to the customer business process, right? So as you can see here in the slide deck, I just try to depict my understanding of the virtual entity. I think those who currently working from a customer engagement side and leveraging the virtual entity concepts, probably they are aware. But in my view, when we think about a cross app or the one Dynamics one platform integration with FNO, the key to ensure the robust integrations is all about thinking data, right? Because everybody is worried about data. So the concept of this virtualization, as the name suggests, has existed in the industry for some time, right? And customer are using their siloed data which someone needs to reach or use, right, as and when required, basically on demand basis, right? And actually the virtual tables become that abstraction layer where the user does not need to know where the data is resides, correct, and how to access it. It does not require any specific infrastructure to establish before the data is being accessed by the users, right? In fact, in my view, it allows users to real-time on-demand access of data. And in the context of today's session, the external data sources, the terminology that I'm frequently using is nothing but a finance and operation app. In your implementation case, it may be some different data source, but as we are talking about in the context of virtual entity and the data entity from a financial operation app perspective, the external data source is a financial operation app. As you can see, the formal definition is pretty much easy to understand. It's nothing but a platform which allows the data sources and and then try to connect the data, allows you to perform all sort of actions which is required for database action to be performed, which is create, read, update, and delete. And from both the sides, it is you can activate from the data to be initiated, update, delete from Dataverse, as well as from a financial operation app side. Both the side you can do that. But one of the things that I distinctly remember and would like to highlight more on this, as we talked about in the previous slide, what business problems that are you trying to resolve by using the virtual entity and the data event, right? So as you can see in the previous slide, so virtual entities does not require an infrastructure. It is just a data wherever you are exposing a data entity. If I talk about in financial operation concept, the data entities, that's what I can say, abstraction layer of all the table data in the financial operation app is exposed as a virtual entity in the Power Apps or in the customer engagement side, right? And then it requires some sort of configuration to be done, and then on top of that, you can just perform all the activity. But if you need a data events to be captured, right? So which is a combination of both. That is where often business asks the questions, what problems that are you going to resolve by enabling the virtual entity and the data event, right? So I just try to list down a couple of my observations that I foresee and I have seen with many customers. They have benefited by implementing and leveraging the virtual entity as well as data events. And I'm going to highlight those points one by one. One of the point is it allows to visualize and represent the data from external source, right? So think about a scenario, you are bringing a data from an external system and you want to build some sort of visualization aspect or represent the data the way business wants. So virtual entity is one of the options which allows to do that. Another option or another benefit is it does comes with the out of the box feature, right? So don't require any sort of third party plugins or third party add-ins to be required. So it's out of the box feature comes with the product, and there is no running cost, because when you try to implement any projects, definitely the sponsor look at how much is the cost is going to be involved from a capex and the operational opex perspective, right? So from that perspective also, it is not required to have some sort of running cost, and no additional license is required to set up the components. However, if you are running a scenario where just a virtual entity is enabled from the data entity of financial operation app perspective and leveraging as a virtual entity in customer engagement app or a power apps, then you need a license, or you need a license from a financial operation app perspective. But if you are using a virtual entity alongside with data events, then it does not require a license, because data events allow you to write your business logic the way CRM guys used to write any sort of plugins and the business logic inside the plugins, right? So that is how it is we can go. Another aspect which I would like to highlight is a big impact on the project's budgets, right? So, and because it's a low storage cost of Dataverse and as data resides in FNO. As you can see or understand the licensing component for the storage cost of Dataverse, it is much higher than the cost of financial operation from a data perspective. So that's the reason it is one of the options that can be leveraged if at all, if the your architecture or your design allows you to enter the virtual entity or enable the virtual entity. Another aspect is if you have this sort of integration, then it does not require any sort of, the integration design where a lot of development resources or integration orchestration sort of tools are required. Those who actually work in the past and might have heard about a tool called the BizTalk or some sort of other platforms which requires to data to be integrated, but in the context of virtual entity and data events, it does not require any sort of development resources or integration. You can easily go and do that. Another one is the less impact on your timeline. So if you have a tight timelines and the budget, you can always go for these options for all sort of create, read, update, and delete sort of activities, and fewer integration components to maintain and develop win-win situation for everyone. As I mentioned in the one of the point, the data resides in FNO, right? So the risk of having a data that is out of sync is never a problem in the case of the virtual entity and data events, because the data is going to be there. There is a data policy defined by Microsoft for financial operation database. No need to worry about where is my data is going to be out of sync, right? So you can easily manage the data as and when is required. One of the aspects that I also learned as part of the out of the box capability of this feature, that it comes with the all component of Power Apps. For example, if you have a business scenario where you wanted to use this option for model driven app, and the users are going to leverage a model driven app, and you wanted to use a finance and operation app as a backend system, and you want to leverage the some sort of business logic in the context of virtual entity, then I think it does also support the Canvas app and any sort of Power Portals and customer engagement apps as well. In addition to this, it also going to leverage the Power Automate and Logic apps. So if you have a virtual entity enabled and you want to perform some sort of data events actions, you can simply go and leverage the Power Automates and Logic app as well. Finally, it is all depends upon how you're going to manage your, the entire solution and the aspects of the design. Now I'll move on to a next point, which is the virtual table or entities configurations. And not to confuse all, often I use virtual table or entities. I think earlier it was called as entity, and now it has been rebranded as a virtual tables. So one of the first point that you need to have is to enable the Dynamics 365 ERP virtual entity solutions in the Power Apps sites. I'll show you once we move on to demo where to go and what to implement. So once you have that solution nothing but a solution which contains the metadata, all sort of OData adapters that is required for connection to be built with the financial operation apps under the hood. So it is must have to implement this sort of one particular Dynamics 365 virtual entity solution. Another aspect, that is point number 2, is the virtual data source configuration, right? So I'm sure those who are working in financial operation app might be aware anything that is required from a data perspective to be exposed externally you cannot directly expose externally as it is. It requires Azure Active Directory authentication as a resource to be created, right? So all these aspects, as I mentioned in the point number 2, also to be available as part of the information to be captured in the advanced setting of Power Apps, whatever the data was that you have. And the third aspect, as soon as you do that, that is the steps, which is point number 2, allows the authorization and authentication with financial operation app. And once you've done that, then step number 3 is simplified a way of list of data entities of financial operation app result into a virtual entity as it is, right? Virtual entity in the Power App side or customer engagement side. We will see in actions once we move on to a next slide. Now we'll just talk about authentication authorization, because this is also one of the aspects many customers typically ask these points, and they try to focus more on the understanding of authorization authentication. So as you saw in the first or slide number 5, where I'll just quickly go back to slide number 5. As you can see here, how that authentication authorization work. It is happens to a OData virtual table provider. That is how one of the table provider which leverage the OData. There are many virtual providers are available in Dataverse. One of them is OData, the others are Cosmos and the SQL Server as well. And in terms of understanding of that, the authentication is the service calls, right? So whenever the Power Apps or customer engagement app try to perform any actions from their side, it goes as a service call. It validates the Azure Active Directory resource that you have configured for financial operation app, data to be accessed, data to be update or delete or create for that matter. Otherwise, it will start filling the authorization errors. If you are using a virtual entity in the context of only and only virtual entity, not the data events, then you need to assign the virtual entity application security role for those users in the financial operation app, so that they can start accessing the data and updating the data. As I mentioned earlier, it runs on a user context, right? So anything you need to have that user to be exist in the financial operation app if you are going with the only virtual entity. But if you're going in the combination of virtual entity and a data events, in that case, you don't require any licensing from a financial operation perspective, because each and every logic you are going to embed in the plugin steps, and that logic is going to be triggered, and automatically that logic will result into a set of actions into the into the financial operation app, as well as into the Power Apps, based on how you set up that event, so on and so forth. Now I'll move on to the next slides, which actually talks about the high level architecture of virtual entity data events. You can read this slide from your left to right. So the left indicates the source part of it, which is a financial operation app, and right side is talked about the target, which is a Dataverse. So I'll start explaining from your left to right. So as you can see, the financial operation app maintains the data events catalogs, which is nothing but a business events catalog, which runs on the data entity. So everything is going to be driven by the data entity, right? So as and when you start creating or updating or any information in the source with the financial operation app, there are a set of bound actions which allows this data events architecture or pipelines allow you to configure. One of them is on external created or updated or deleted. We will see an action in a few minutes. But the idea is that as soon as those bound action gets triggered, those actions gets registered through a plugins, again, which is the same concepts of customer engagement app and Power Apps. And then plugin steps has the business logic. And then that business logic actually triggers the next set of asynchronous steps, right? And one thing to be noted here, as I mentioned in the slide deck as well, currently it does support only asynchronous steps. However, still there are a couple of activities or options or business scenarios not configured and not enabled as an out of the box capability. One of them is the pre-validation and pre-operation execution stages and the synchronous execution. I think somewhere I read that it is going to happen sometime Jan or March. So we will see what Microsoft is bringing in terms of the pre-validations and the synchronous sort of execution mode. But currently, as we speak, it is not supported for virtual entity in the context of financial operation app. And And the color highlighted one that you can see, it's a configuration piece which is required for your finance and operation app to be to be connected with the Power Apps or customer engagement app in the context of virtual table and providers. Right. So I'll quickly move on to next slide, which will give you some sort of understanding of key components to be enabled for Power Apps or customer engagement app in the context of integration. So as I mentioned in the beginning of this talk, that if there are two scenarios, one of the scenario is where customer is already leveraging the financial operation app and they're planning to implement customer engagement app or Power Apps. So definitely in that case, you can leverage one of the options from an infrastructure perspective where customer is really required for Power Platform, definitely required because anything you need Dataverse as a database to be enabled. So customer receives initial Power Platform environments without Dataverse, which is a link to finance and operation app, which is a one-to-one relationship. So I'm referring to a scenario where customer is not having any sort of Power Platform environment and they are going to initiate a Power Platform environment. So in that case, they will get that's without Dataverse environment. Then they can connect the financial operation app environment during a setup and Power Platform integrations. If you're going with the automating one, then it is going to be automatically connected. Otherwise, there are a bunch of configurations manually to be set up. Once it is done, then the Power Platform environment must be in the same geography. That is how the current recommendation. You cannot have the Power Apps or a customer engagement app is running in a one environment or in one geo, which is maybe, for example, west of India and Power Apps or maybe finance and operation app running in US. It will start giving the latency issue. That's always a recommendation. Both the apps should be in the same geography. You might have heard a bunch of news from Microsoft that they're trying to bring the one Dynamics, one platform experience. And once you do that, once you have that sort of experience, then the LCS portal where we deploy the financial operation app is going to be part of the Dataverse, platform integration setups, which is the administration setup and all. But in the another scenario where you want to enable the cloud development environment for a development purpose from a financial operation apps perspective, then you need to manually rerun a couple of scripts, which actually adds the entry in the avoice web.config file and then allow you to connect to your Dataverse environments. I do understand I'm going too fast. Maybe it will take some time to digest the content, but I'm just trying to give you a glimpse or a high level thought process that if you are having the financial operation app existing world, which is on the right hand side I mentioned, then you may need to run some sort of PowerShell script for a tier 1 environment. For a tier 2 environment, if it is already deployed a tier 2 environment, then you need to redeploy, you need to decommission that environment and redeploy and to establish a connection with Power Apps. But if you look at the left hand side, which is a fresh journey of Power Platform and financial operation app, then I think it is good to go and enable the or leverage the automated process, which actually creates the Dataverse in the background and the configurations, what we are going to look at in few minutes of time. Then I'll focus on the next slide and I'll just try to give you what we are going to achieve today. So I just depict the business scenario for everyone understanding and not to complicate or over engineering the thought process. So think about a scenario. You are working in one of the implementation project and luckily the customer is having finance and operation app as well as Power Apps or customer engagement app, one of them, right? Let me refer the Dataverse, right? And customer is trying to understand the technology and you try to explain the way you learn in previous 30 minutes or so, and customer understood. But the point is that how I'm going to leverage the licensing concept. So what I'm trying to highlight in the business scenario that on creation process of customer record in financial operation app, automatically the task activities needs to be created. That is what the customer need, right? Because they don't need any task activity to be manually created by their Power Apps or Dataverse users, right? And they need to leverage the capability of this technology, leveraging no impact on the licensing aspect. Another ask from customer is the create a task activity for the follow-up purpose, right? So think about a scenario, the task activity is created today. However, the customer will start doing the follow-up with their end customers in maybe 15 or 20 days or so. For today's demo purpose, we will refer 15 days. And they need to also capture the information such as customer name, customer ID, whatever the fields that they captured in the world of financial operation app, so that it can easily pass that record argument. If I talk about in a technology world or technical term, then they need that argument of data to be passed to Dataverse. And it means in a nutshell, they need that some information which is captured by ERP user in the ERP. They need that information to be passed on to Dataverse. In a nutshell, they are expecting some sort of automated task to be created in a Dataverse, right? Uh, by writing some sort of low code, if not no code, right? So that is the whole approach of our today's business scenario. I'll just quickly stop my presentation and let me reshare my screen where we are going to talk about more on the hands-on perspective. There we go. So as you can see here, I have already opened the Power Apps as well as some of the aspects which is required for Power Apps for that virtual entity and Dataverse to be configured, as well as the finance and operation screen. Those who are maybe first time seeing the finance and operation app. So this is a screen that typically we navigate. So this is a landing page. Let me just show this is a landing page. These are the modules that comes with the finance and operation app. It looks clumsy. It looks difficult to read. I will not confuse you because our today's discussion and the user scenario is very specific to a customer. The customer record to be created. As soon as we create a customer record in the finance and operation app, it will create a one task activity in the Power Apps. That task activity will have some schedule date, some schedule time, as well as start and end date, and some reference of the customer, so that next level of activity can be taken up further by the Power Apps user. But the point to be highlighted, how we are leveraging the event-driven architecture, how we are leveraging the power of the data events, which runs on the concept of framework of the event data framework, right? So that is how it is. So first and foremost, you need a solution to be implemented. You might have seen in the previous slide deck. So you need the Dynamics 365 ERP virtual entity solution to be installed in your environment of Dataverse. And you can easily get this solution from app source. You can download from app source and you can install it. As soon as you've done that, then your first activity is done. Next step is to navigate to the advanced setting. And as I mentioned earlier, once you navigate to the advanced setting, then configure the go to the settings and configure your what you can say in the administrator, configure your virtual data source. In our case, I have already configured, so no need to navigate to again. Once you configure the data source, sometimes it takes time to reload. But while it is loading, let me just quickly navigate to other slides. So once it is loaded, then the connection of finance and operation app, which I already configured by enabling so this is the section where you configure the virtual entity of data source for financial operation. If I navigate to this path, you will see a bunch of data sources. One of them is financial operation app, right? So I will not go into detail because it contains some secrets informations of the Azure secret key and all, but this is one of the aspects. Once you configure this and once you go to the filter option, which is advanced filter options in Power Apps, then you will see a option called available data entity, which you can look up for it, which allows you to filter the information from a financial operation app perspective in terms of you can see here in terms of the data entities. So as I mentioned, the data entities are going to be available as a virtual entity in the Power Apps or Financial Operation Apps. So I'll just quickly list down the virtual entity name, which I already used for customer V3 entity. So this is one of the data entity that I'm going to use for our demo purpose. I'll come to that point. What is the data entity and all about once we switch the gears to the Visual Studio. Okay, so that is how we can leverage. Once you enable that, I think something is not working. Let me just quickly go and write a name. So as you can see here, I have copy paste the data entity name of customer, which is customer V3 entity, and I have already enabled that data entity for me to be act upon in the Power Apps. As I mentioned earlier, here you will see all the list of data entity from Power Apps from a finance and operation apps perspective. I have already enabled this just to save the time because sometimes it takes time to refresh. But if you don't want to use that, you can go ahead, click on this and mark that visible false. So automatically that data entity will be automatically removed from Power Apps. So this is what about the data setups or the virtual entity configuration setup. Once it is done, then you need to have your own solution, right? So no need to explain for financial operation or maybe for that matter, those who are working in Dataverse side. So the solution is nothing but a container, right? So whatever the artifacts that we need to be created or financial operation app to be act upon, everything is going to be reside as part of this container, which is nothing but the solution. So technical name is container, but on the surface it is called as solution, right? So as you can see here, just before the demo, I just actually try to run the assembly. I try to create some sort of business events in the context of today's events of Global BizApps Weekend. And everything is going to be automatically driven by the Power Explorer. Right? So I'll show you what is the Power Explorer. So once the configuration is done, once you create the empty container over here, then next step is to install the Power Apps Explorer component, which comes with as an add-in in the if you just go to the manage extension, I have already installed, but I'll just quickly navigate for your everyone reference. So when you navigate with the Power Platform, you can easily download from Visual Studio Marketplace. I have already installed. So this extension basically contains the business logic or the metadata which is required for financial operation app data entity to be act as a the virtual entity in the Dataverse site, right? So I have already installed this, which is done. Once it is done, then what you can do, you can create a new template. Let me just quickly go back and show you. So I'll navigate to the Visual Studio. I'll click on my blank projects. As soon as I create my blank project, it will allow me to create or select a bunch of options. As we are focusing on the solution to be created or the artifacts to be created for Power Platform, we need to select the Power Platform solution template, which we already installed. So let me just quickly go back and search, which is already available. As soon as you click that, then it will ask you to connect to which Dataverse environment that you want to connect, right? So in my view, I have already configured it. As soon as you process that activity, it creates the solution for you. It creates a package for you, and it also creates the projects for you, which is the name of that assembly, which is the name of that project, right? As a next step, once you do that, then whatever the assembly, because when you say the plugins are nothing but the assembly, right? So that assembly needs to be registered. Then you need to navigate and do the signing activity for. I already performed that signing activity. If you have any your dedicated key, you can always do it, or you can go with the standard algorithm that Microsoft provides for the signature perspective. And once it is done, then it creates the blank, the Shisha file for you based on your actions, right? So I'll just quickly go back and navigate. How did I reach out to this sort of activity, which is showing here? Once you install that plugin, navigate to the view, you will see the option called Power Platform Explorer. When you click on the Power Platform Explorer, it opens this Power Platform Explorer, which is very similar to application object explorer of finance and operation app. The only difference is that you will see the Dataverse as a Dataverse name of the database. You will see a bunch of tables which comes with the Dataverse. You will see a event catalog, as you can see here in the slide on my screen. Event catalog, which is nothing but a business event catalog. Underneath, you will see a finance and operation app as a another section, and the down below you will see a bunch of modules name, right? Why modules name? Because when we create a data entity in financial operation app, it comes with the strong name of that particular module. So it automatically segregate just for a simplicity purpose. Otherwise, what will happen? It will list down all the entities down below here and need to search as and when is required. So In today's context, we are leveraging the customer V3 entity. So customer is part of the account receivable module. So that's the reason you will see here it is available here in the customer V3 entity, which is a customer V3 entity. And what I have done, I have created a external event. If you want to create a new external event, just simply right click on this and click on add plugins. Once you click on the plugins, this is a very similar screen. I think those who work in the past on customer engagement side, probably they are familiar with this. These steps allow you to register your message for finance and operation app to be act upon against the Dataverse, right? So you can see a bunch of information, your message, which is on external created because I need external data events to be captured, right? So external means the finance and operation app in the context of Dataverse. So I'll select on external created, okay, which is by default. And the primary entity name is the customer group entity or customer V3 entity in this concept. And then you can select bunch of options. You might have remember on the slide deck, I mentioned the post operation and the pre-validation and the operation condition. Both the conditions are not available at this stage from a pipeline event pipeline stages perspective. At this stage, it does only allow synchronous, asynchronous, and the server. Synchronous also not allowed, and offline was not allowed. In future, maybe it will be available as a synchronous call as and when the finance and operation have committed information. But till that time, we need to stick to the asynchronous and the post operation. As soon as we click on the registration step, then automatically it creates the uh, class library project for you as well as the C# code as well. And that comes with the standard I organization service from a CRM or a Power Apps perspective, or Dataverse perspective. And I have added this bunch of additional logic. If you just go back to the slide deck, you
Rakesh,
probably, yeah,
we just around the time we have 10 more minutes for the session, so I'm just you can plan accordingly.
sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for the reminder. Thanks. So as you can see here, I just added a line of code which allow you to record the information in the task entity in Dataverse. I just captured the fields which is required because that is how the XML is going to be passed. And the getting the request entity which is coming from the target, which is a finance and operation app. This is the entity field name, which is a customer account, and adding a additional business logic, which I want a schedule start date and schedule end date to be captured, right? And then bunch of other activities where if in case if that ID does not contain, then it will start throwing the error message and the cache, so and so. So I will not go into detail, but the point to be highlighted, this is a place where you can enable the business logic where the data to be created, updated, or deleted in the Dataverse. As I already mentioned, I already configured before pre-demo because we have limited time. Once you do that, you can just simply go ahead and deploy this assembly. Once you deploy the assembly, again, it will start populating the dialog, and that dialog will ask you which data, which plugins that in or which plugin steps that you need to select, right? So once you select that steps, then it will start automatically synchronizing with the steps that you created. And automatically it will start synchronizing with the Dataverse artifacts. So just a quick recap while it is loading. We have understood the definition of virtual entity. We also understood the challenges and the benefit of using this. We also understood how we are going to leverage the activity and all those stuff. We also see how to enable the Dataverse and the artifacts which are required. Now what I'll do, I'll take a pause and I'll go back to the financial operation app, okay, and navigate to the account receivable module, and that is where we will see the option of we will create a one customer record, and let's see how that customer record is flow to the Dataverse as a in the task entity. As the application pool is recycled, maybe it will take some time. Okay, there you go. So I'll just quickly navigate to the account receivable, the customer form. Now what I'll do, I'll create a new record here as a customer. Say for example, customer 1267 global biz apps weekend. I'll select the customer group, which is a mandatory here, and I'll click save. So what happens is as soon as you save the records, the business events gets fired in the background, which results into the action which is required to be happen, which we have already configured here, where the task entity to be initiate and this particular record to be created in the task entity. So I'll just quickly go back to the task entity. I already opened the task entity. Let me just quickly refresh. So as you can see here, the first record that we have created is appeared with the start date and the due date, which is nothing but the two dates that I have captured, which is the schedule start and the schedule end date, and also the category, which is the primary data entity. So this way you can implement your low code logic in the context of virtual entity and data events. And if you go with this option, then you do not require any sort of additional license. If you don't go with the data events and just only the virtual data entity for action to be performed in Power Apps or customer engagement, then you need a license in the financial operation app based on users. Those are going to access the Power Apps or Power Portal for that matter. I think with that, I'll take a pause and I'll see if there are any further questions. Happy to take those questions now.
So, if any questions, please feel free to ask or drop in the chat. As of now, there are no questions.
I can understand it's a heavy topic. Probably people will take time to digest, but feel free to reach out to me. As I mentioned in the slide deck, you can reach out to me through LinkedIn or Twitter, and happy to help you out.
But you explain in a very comprehensive manner, so
There was a question, Rakesh. So Shabir was asking like, are these data events utilizing the change tracking feature of data entity within D365 and O?
Okay, so it's a very valid questions. So as we speak in the context of data entity and data events, at this stage, it does not allow the change tracking. But if you just go with the only data entity change tracking, then you can go ahead and enable the data entity with change tracking. But in the context of virtual entity and the data events, then that feature is still not exist. Does that answer your question, Shabir? You can communicate through chat.
Okay, yes.
Okay. Any more question, folks? I can see we have still 3 minutes left.
Don't have any other questions.
Okay.
I think no more questions in fact. So I think that's it. Thank you so much, Rakesh. Thank you everyone for joining the event. We really appreciate your presence, and we hope this session helped you to take away some powerful learnings. And once again, thank you, Rakesh, for this amazing session. Though that was a complex topic, you explained in a very comprehensive manner, which is very understandable. And you explained step by step even the slides, the PowerPoint slides are well organized, step by we experienced like a tutor explaining everything very step by step how to do hands-on experience. So really thank you for the session, and we hope to do more sessions with you. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Nijo, for your kind words. Really appreciate. And thank you, Venkata.
And also congratulations one more time, Rakesh, for
Thank you.
getting the recognition from as an MVP. So we would like to work together more in future so that
Sure.
we'll work as a community. And yes, this is the first time that you are speaking at our annual event, but I would like to more uh, pass your knowledge to all the other viewers or the
Sure.
people, so that generally the FNO kind of, if any people ask about the FNO, the people does not have that much exposure, because FNO is an vast subject. But now every apps are being integrated and connected with each other, because the whole business problems are coming like that. So it would be good so that the people who have the dynamic CA and the Power Platform experience exposure have the experience of this FNO as well. Thank you.
Correct. I think I'll leave my blog address here. If anyone wants to go through the blog post, which I typically focus more on the cross apps, I think they can go ahead and do that. So it will be learning for them. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Sure. Just I'm stopping recording.